everyone thinks they know what they're doing. And that's fine. But, I think marketing is far more nuanced. And I think also marketing is incredibly complex. I think it's probably one of the more complex departments in any organization, in any industry.
Welcome to the Marketing Expedition Podcast, an auditory journey through the latest in marketing, branding, and advertising. Now, here's your Marketing Expedition guide, Ray Allen.
On this episode of the Marketing Expedition Podcast, we get to speak with Nathan Yeung. He has over a decade of experience in advertising and advising B2B businesses on their marketing strategy. He's helped companies build their marketing teams from 0 to 1, delivering GTM deployments, and launching new products into go-to-market products. So wonderful things to hear from Nathan and lots of good nuggets to drop, and also reasons why you should use an agency if you're an entrepreneur listening to this right now, or a leader in a company that needs an agency. You'll experience why. So that's coming up next. But first, it's time for our Marketing Essentials moment, the basics that you need to help you continue to build your brand and your bottom line. The topic I wanted to cover is to give you some good marketing terminology to use. So that way, when you are speaking to your leadership or when you're wanting to maybe get a job in marketing, or you're speaking across channels into different departments and maybe you're not quite the marketer yet, but I wanted to give some just general ideas of terms that we use in marketing. So for example, B2B, so business to business marketing, is just that. You're referring to marketing strategies and targets where you're going after other businesses, and they're types of businesses that will serve other businesses. So whether it's professional services or types of products that are served to just businesses alone, you might be looking at generating leads from a business perspective so that you're doing some title targeting and marketing to those specific types of people who are purchasers or leaders in that business, or decision makers that you want to purposely market to specifically so that you can get your message in front of them. So B2B is one to think about. And then another one is going to be B2C. So business to consumer marketing is really the term that's used to describe marketing to individual consumers. So you might have a business, then that is going to then market to the specific consumers who would use that product or service. So B2C targets the specific buying habits of those individuals who will use that product or service, and you are doing things to help influence their buying decisions when it comes to purchasing either online or in store. So some of the tactics that you're going to take in B2C are going to be different than what you would take in B2B. And then tactics like influencer marketing. So that's engaging on social presence with somebody who is a prominent influencer who then might tag your product or service or endorse it or talk about it, and then utilizing the influencer marketing, actually paying them to sponsor, support, or endorse your product or service. And thinking about B2C versus B2B, B2C or business to consumer sales cycles are usually shorter than B2B. Sometimes in B2B, it takes longer to make decisions because they might be a higher purchasing amount, or it might include more people than just one decision maker. It might take more proactive approaches to then reach all of the decision makers or influencers in that decision if you're in B2B situations. But for B2C, thinking about how you can use some best practices in getting the consumers interested in using your product or service. It's all about thinking how and stepping into their shoes and empathizing with them for a minute. And what is it about your product or service that they're going to want to buy and why? And what are some social proof techniques and ways to use and draw on emotion to then have some outcomes that are focused in language and addressing what their pain point is or what their needs are, to then spur into action and or reaction in purchasing from you, and helping to build that trustworthy brand and leveraging all things like review platforms and, social media platforms, rankings, ratings, reviews, recommendations, all of those things that can help you on the consumer side. Another term we use is inbound marketing. So those are tactics that we take to attract customers through content or experiences, also known as pull marketing, because it's designed to pull your audience in. So inbound marketing relies on targeting audiences to specifically give them messages or information or visuals that are going to identify with the people who meet your ideal customer profile or your ideal client, your soulmate client, if you will. And you're doing things to pull them in to try to reach them with a tailored message across all a variety of different channels that are going to resonate with them, that they're using, that they're being inundated with, on a regular basis. So you're just wanting to cover topics that are interesting to them, being able to subtly sell, not just sell, right? You're doing things that are going to establish you as the thought leader, and you're going to pull them into your website or pull them into your social media platforms or pull them into your email newsletter list, having them sign up with first party data as opposed to third party, right? And so you're going to attract and engage and delight them in your tactics that you're taking for inbound marketing. And of course, always important to understand who your target audience is and how you can resonate with them best. And so going through an empathy mapping process is something that we do. You're really literally stepping into their shoes or empathizing with them and coming up with the day in the life of who they are, where they get their information from, who they're influenced by, and how you can get in front of them on a regular basis to disrupt their patterns, to connect with them, and then inspire them to buy or be motivated, or if it's an awareness campaign, to take action in some way. So getting to know your target audience is always helpful. Understanding how you're going to maximize your ROI. So when you put out efforts, what are you going to receive in return? And it's not always monetary, by the way. Return on investment, it doesn't always have to be a money association. It can be sentiment scoring. It can be, sentiment meaning on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to purchase from them again? How likely would you be to recommend them to somebody else? Those types of things. Another term we use is outbound marketing, and it is an approach that we use where the company makes the first move. And in this scenario, you're reaching out to build brand awareness and to generate leads. And this is really the style of marketing is interruptive. You're targeting an audience who isn't necessarily looking for a product or solution, but you're there to educate them and create brand visibility and put your brand in front of them on a regular, ongoing basis. Okay, so more terminology. We'll make this another series of just marketing terms that you need to know to help you continue to do the things that you need to do in your business to build your brand and your bottom line. All right, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Marketing Expedition podcast. I'm your host, Ray Allen. I'm the president and CEO of Peppershock Media and the founder of the Marketing Expedition community. And today's guest, we have Nathan Yeung on the show. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Thanks, Ray, for having me.
Absolutely. So, Nathan, I want to have you just give us a bit of a background. I know we have your bio and all that good stuff, but tell me more about you and how did Nathan get to where he is now?
That's a long and awkward journey, I'll be honest. I went to school for marketing, but my first job was as VP of finance, so it's a little awkward.
Finance and marketing, oh no, it's a tug of war.
It's kind of, it's kind of different. And then after I was a VP of finance, I was actually a management consultant for a couple companies and really helping with strategy and integration management. And then I kind of found my way back into corporate. That didn't really work out. And out of that corporate job, I ended up starting Find Your Audience. So been running Find Your Audience, which is I hate using the term agency, but I suppose we are. We're about 25 people and we've been doing it now for about 7 years.
Excellent. And what kind of was your deciding moment of, okay, I'm done with the corporate world. Now I'm going to jump out on my own. What was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will?
Frankly speaking, I've always been an entrepreneur, so it was easy for me to leave corporate. I've always had side businesses, whether that was affiliate marketing on the side or just small businesses or small service businesses. I always had something on the side. But when I went back to corporate, I had kind of agreed to myself. I was like, no more side things. I got to go do a job and I got to try it. And I hated it. And then so going back was pretty easy actually for me.
Good.
So why did I wanted to start a marketing firm was one, I was trained in it. And more importantly, I always loved marketing. It was always a passion of mine. It was obviously what I went to school for. And I got to see marketing in a very different light, in the sense that I was seeing marketing from different departments, not from the actual marketing department itself. And for me, actually, I started the agency really just because I kind of was disappointed in all the services my friends were getting. I was, talking to my friends and they were saying, "Hey, so and so said this," and I said, "What?" And then, "How much did that cost?" And they'd be like, "That's not supposed to be that much." And it was just very frustrating to see all my friends who are business owners kind of get bad advice.
Oh.
And I kind of knew that I had the professional chops to do it, and so I kind of made the agency to service them, and then that kind of blossomed into the business that it is today.
So when you first started, what was sort of the signature move that you made that you could do to help service those clients that you were building and gaining? And has it changed over the last, you said 7 years, right?
Oh, it's changed so much. I tell people I climbed like on the steepest hill possible to build this business. I was not a specialist, so we were doing strategy, but then at the same time we were also doing tactical. And for those that don't know, when you have no strategy and then you do tactical, that's really everything in the toolbox. It could be a website, it could be events, it could be demand generation, it could be a whole bunch of things.
Right.
So I was on the whole idea. It's like, I want to do strategy and I want to do tactical, because I don't want to feel like I was when I was a management consultant, where I was just like, here's all the strategy, here's the direction, but I had no like hands-on ability to actually get it done. So, realistically, when we were starting off, very, very small engagements, where we were doing very, very tactical local marketing kind of things. And where we are today is we are full blown, for some companies, especially for one of our larger clients, Constellation Software and their portfolios. We are really the full marketing department, which is really nice, which means we're fully accountable for the KPIs, we're fully accountable for the budget, and we're fully accountable and empowered to make our own decisions. So I'll do everything from websites to events to demand generation to SEO. It is basically whatever I feel is going to be the driver for that business to meet their yearly KPI. So it's like a dramatic departure from, the Ricky Dicky kind of like, like flyer campaign here and, website here and things like that. So now it's like fully integrated.
Nice. And it's wonderful when you get to be the full marketing department for a company, isn't it? Because then now suddenly you're like the master of your own domain, right? Your own destiny is in your own hands.
It is, and it's so lovely, and I think it's like one of the main things that I think a lot of companies fail to do when they hire. Don't hire. If you want to hire a marketing company that gives you advice, then believe in their advice, because you're paying for that.
Yeah.
But if you want to hire someone because you think you're a marketing expert and you want tactical outcomes, then don't blame them if there's no outcomes.
Right.
And so, right, and that's really frustrating for a lot of marketers. So I'm super happy with the clients that we have, because we have built trust to the point where we are fully empowered. And I will always tell my clients, I'm like, look, if I don't meet your requirements, you fire me, just like an employee, right? So it's like, if I can't meet my KPIs, you give me everything, you give me all the tools in the toolbox. I can't meet your KPIs, fire me. That's my,
Yeah.
So otherwise, if you want to golden handcuff me, then don't get mad at me if you want to drive the boat and you want to drive it into the rocks.
Right.
Like,
We don't want
I'll
to
drive it into the rocks with you.
task takers, right? We're not just order takers, right? We're the ones who can help make recommendations and give you the advice that you're coming to us to do. And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I always say, so when we work with healthcare providers, right? MD at the end of the doctor's name does not mean marketing director. Leave that to us.
Yeah, and it's crazy, right? You bring up a great point. A lot of people in a lot of organizations, and I don't think there's a single industry that's immune to this, is we're one of the departments where people like to jump the swim lane in responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like, it is very natural for someone to be like, I could do marketing. I can come up with an ad. I know what that color should be.
Yeah.
But then there's like, you never see a marketing guy to go up to the CFO and be like, why are you using that payroll system?
Mhm.
You should use this. Right? You don't go to your lawyer and just be like, did you read this article? Are you sure you're actually using the right example? But for marketing, we'll get everyone everyone, like a full onion slice of the organization, thinking that their opinion is materially going to impact marketing. It's
Yeah.
really frustrating, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, and it's more of the educational component to say, listen, you did hire us to help you with the strategy and plan, so it's up to you to execute and listen to us with the whole plan in mind, right? I mean, it is facilitating that creative slash process that everyone has their opinions, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Everyone thinks they know what they're doing, and that's fine. But I think marketing is far more nuanced, and I think also marketing is incredibly complex. I think it's probably one of the more complex departments in any organization in any industry.
well, and to your point too, people just don't necessarily understand what's working, what's not, and they just see, they might see a visual display of something and be like, oh well, I don't think that's working, or oh, you know what, we tried that but it didn't work. Well, how do you know? Did you actually like track it and measure it and test it? How do you know if it's working or not if you're not even in marketing, right?
Yeah, and this whole idea of, I think what I see a lot is executives interpreting results in isolation,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, oh, okay, so we give you a budget of 10 grand and you did this campaign and it's X cost. And it's like, that's really expensive. It's like, well, yes, it is expensive. It's a brand new campaign. It's a brand new thing to generate some sort of revenue generating activity. But how much did it cost for your salespeople to get the same MQL or SQL?
Mm-hmm.
And have you compared that? And often a lot of companies don't even do that math, right? So if you've got a team of 3 people in your sales department and one senior leader, so let's take it like $120,000 plus 2 employees, which are going to be $70,000 each. So you got 140 plus 120.
Yep.
So you got call it $260,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Compare your sales team to your marketing spend and ask the question, if they can generate leads at scale on whatever channel that is, maybe that's events, maybe that's paid media, is that comparable? And most times when you ask that question, they pause,
Yeah.
because no one's actually ever taken the salary to cost per acquisition route, but they will always do a $10,000 marketing budget to a cost per acquisition route. It's like very easy for them to do that.
That's the key point too. It's the kind of the selling point, right? If you hired 2 people in-house versus the agency, now suddenly you have 10 people to do 10 different jobs that are in their wheelhouse, their expertise, whereas those 2 people, maybe they're just trying to be, the Jane or Jack of all trades and master of maybe some, but when now suddenly you've got 10 people with 10 brains and 10 experts working for you for that same cost of those 2 employees, absolutely. There's more that can get done. There's people that know and inside and out what kind of tactics and things to take, because that's what they live and breathe every day, right? I mean, that is definitely an argument that is something that business owners should take note. Either hire an agency, pay the same amount as 2 employees who are generalists, right? They have to do all kinds of hats, wear all different hats. Whereas in agencies, like I have a video producer, I have a copywriter, I have a designer, I have, the strategy and planning and then execution and media buying. And that's what they focus on. Whereas those 2 people have to wear so many hats, they're juggling it all, and then they do nothing well because they're trying to do everything, right?
Yeah.
It's
And,
true.
I think even building out a proper sales team, I think look, actually, you know what? I'll correct myself, because I think it's mean for me just to single out sales, but I think building any department from scratch is difficult.
Yep.
And I think building marketing departments is difficult for a lot of people to accept.
Yeah.
And I always tell, a lot of clients that we tend to have kind of a bit of a lifespan. And so for 3 years, 4 years, we're the perfect fit. And then we hire out. So we actually hire ourselves out of a job. So we'll bring in their development, because they should reach a certain revenue amount where it makes sense for them to actually have a team.
Right.
But one of the things that I tell a lot of companies, especially when I advise them, I say, look, if you can't hire 3 people, like 3 dedicated people, typically a senior, a mid, and a junior, you're not going to have a department.
Right.
So you're going to have a really broken department, and or for some reason, like many companies, like I can't count how many executives I've ever seen. They're just like, oh, we'll just hire a marketing manager and they'll do everything. It's like, no, they're not going to be great content writers. They're maybe going to have like the affinity in one skill set, like HubSpot or Salesforce. They're not going to be a designer.
Mhm.
They might be, and using Canva doesn't mean you're a designer.
Amen to
You're not
that.
going to be a copy. Yeah, right. You're not going to be a copywriter. They're definitely not going to be the best media buyer, right? They're going to go into Facebook, or if they're really bad, they might actually listen to the account manager who's giving you terrible advice.
Right. Right.
And you're going to get a person who's going to be spending a lot of their time kind of producing results in all facets of marketing fairly poorly.
Mhm.
So yes, you'll get a marketing outcome, but you're going to get, that really performing at a really poor rate.
Yeah.
And so I always tell companies, it's like, if you can't afford three, you're probably better off with an agency, and you probably need to have at least one person internally who has a responsibility rate of like 30 to 40% on managing that agency, because that agency is going to need someone on the inside to push
Mhm.
things through.
Yep.
And that's the ideal relationship for a lot of companies until you can hire three people.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I can agree with that 100%. I'm sure I don't need to throw a bunch of statistics and percentages at you for you to know that most of us spend too much time staring at screens. Being able to consume your content on the go means that your clients and customers can listen and learn from you without being tied to their desks. With Hello Audio, your customers can put their phones down, power off their PCs, close their MacBooks, and get the information they need from you while they're, let's say, walking a dog, doing a jigsaw puzzle, washing the dishes, maybe when they're in the car or exercising on the treadmill, sunbathing in their garden. Well, Hello Audio makes it incredibly easy for you. No more hours spent trying to figure out tech settings or trying to make a square peg fit into a round hole. You can click publish on an audio feed in a matter of minutes and have control over who accesses what. So visit peppershock.com/offers and sign up for a free trial of Hello Audio. So Nathan, let's dig into some examples of some things that you've done over the years for your clients, and maybe dig into the weeds just a little bit on how you were able to help them in their journey, going from having nobody to somebody to now, being able to then hire because you've worked yourself out of a job. Let's hear it. Let's hear kind of maybe a success story for you.
There's several success stories, and I think one of the things is just our ability to build process, right? So I think when we go into organizations, especially, unfortunately, I don't want to name
Oh,
the
that's
client
okay.
because I know they might be a
Completely
little
understand.
sensitive. But a lot of the times it's building process, right?
Mhm.
So it's really simple. If they have no marketing experts within the organization,
Right.
and they need to be able to build process, it's kind of hard to build process when they have no one doing it. So a lot of the times we're going in and we're really establishing that fundamental base, right?
Mhm.
What does marketing mean for the organization? What are the actual things that are going to drive true outcomes for the business? And what do we think we can do well? And I think that's really where we start, and that's what we do for almost every organization. And it does follow a typical trend. And that trend is we typically focus on product and positioning. We make sure that we're actually in agreement with the product and where they are positioning it in the market. And then we typically do that first. And then we typically go into demand generation. So we go from, hey, let's make sure that we actually know what we're good at.
Mhm.
Let's make sure we're selling it well. Let's make sure we're all aligned with KPIs. And then we go forward and we start doing demand generation, and we agree on budget. So we'll go, hey, based on this ICP, your ideal customer profile, we think LinkedIn and Google ads are going to be the best choices for us to initially start a demand generation. Now, depending on the industry, that might be events, that might be SEO, that might be communities, that might be partnerships. So I always just lean in paid media because I feel like that's where everyone wants to go. So I use it as an example.
Yeah.
A great example of this is actually our client. I can name this because we have a great working relationship with ShopLogix.
Oh, cool.
And ShopLogix is a client that came to us, and Carlos and I, who's the GM, we have an amazing relationship because he came to me. He's like, Nathan, we need to get our product fixed, which basically means their product kind of hierarchy, their naming conventions, all of that was a little fuzzy.
Mhm.
And so our goal was to really streamline that. And he's like, your job is to help sales enablement and product for the first year. Don't even look into this. And then what was nice was we got our hands dirty in really, really making sure that we refined that messaging and we refined the structure. And now all the sales teams aren't confused. We know what we're selling in the market. We know what we're saying in the market,
Mhm.
and we know what we're looking like in the market. And we were able to do that. And now in this year, which is the year 2024, this is the year for demand generation. So the great successes of that is we've basically they went from zero to a lot.
Right.
I won't give the exact number in terms of their LinkedIn generation and MQL. So we've really filled up their top of funnel.
Nice.
Now that being said, we're still going through the quality exercise. So we've got top of funnel, but we're working on quality, which is what I'm going to stress to everyone listening to this. When you start your demand generation campaign, you ain't going to get quality. So you got to iterate. It's an agile process.
Yep.
And then the second big demand generation thing we've done, we've taken them from 150 keywords to over 1,600 keywords in less than 5 months.
Wow.
So we have doubled to maybe even double and a half their organic traffic. So we've really worked on SEO to help assist not only their referral strategies, but just their general visibility in organic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an amazing a success story,
Right.
because we did our exact game plan, which is work on product, focus on product, then work on demand generation.
Right.
And we've seen companies fail on the other end where they go demand generation first, don't touch our product. And I can tell a lot of companies that every time we've done that, I have seen relatively poor results. Right. So the biggest success for us is always these clients that allow us to kind of do our staged plan, which is let us figure out what you're actually good at and let us actually use that and then sell that in our ads, versus forcing us to do ads to sell something that I just call lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a used car sales. It's icky. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. I'm selling lemons in a used car sales lot. Right. And the problem is that then we're being forced to spend money on ads on a subpar positioning of a product. And that doesn't do anyone good. And it just gives, and the worst part is we're spending money and we're getting poor observations. This is the one thing I'm like a big believer in, is it's like, it doesn't matter what marketing thing you do, you got to have good observations. You push us into a bad product and you make us spend money, you just get bad outcomes and no observation. So it's just like a bad exercise. It's like a double bad exercise. So that's our success story. So, we do a lot of SEO. We've seen a lot of great success in the last couple of years in SEO. One of our longest standing contracts is in SEO. I don't think they'll ever replace us because we do so much of it. But I think the successes for us is actually just being able to guide companies that have no marketing function and really helping them understand where they need to prioritize. And I think that's the number one issue with most companies. They don't know where to start. And then the problem is if they start wrong. Now, I'm not saying there's a single, key to the kingdom here, but I am saying different channels and different approaches have higher probabilities of meeting their corporate goals. And I think when you don't have a marketing leader that has experience across industries or across different sizes of organizations, it's highly likely you will choose the wrong horse and you will bet on the wrong horse. And then the marketing function just gets absolutely destroyed at C-suite, right? They're like, you chose this, it's failed. And then marketing just dies. And I see this so many times. So our successes is really helping companies find that high probability lane of success.
Yeah. Well, and you said it earlier too. It is an agile or iterative process where you try something and then you try it again, track and measure it all, and then spend the money after you've found something that you've really dialed in and had made it, sing. I mean, you can keep going and keep doing and keep tweaking, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you get to a point where it's good, then run with that and then continue to track it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like the thing that I always say is double down on channels, right? And I stress that especially for companies that don't have resources. If you're doing Google Ads and you go, oh, we're doing well in Google Ads, we want to start Facebook, then I'll go, well, have you really gone into the metrics to really understand, have you fully maximized the amount of incrementality that's left in that channel? Meaning, have you looked at your top impression share? Have you looked at your market share? Have you actually seen, hey, if you increase bidding, can you actually, is there kind of that peak return where you can continue increasing your bid, but still getting more leads and still making it a very profitable channel? And I always stress to companies, it's like, stop trying to expand your channels until you've really, really milked one channel dry, because the likelihood of you executing well on the other channels is just very low. It's very low.
And then you're spreading yourself too thin, and that happens too, where people want to just do all the different channels and all the different things and then see which one works. But it's a waste of money, in my opinion. Yeah. If you're
Yeah,
getting really
yeah,
good results in one area, then keep with it and then keep making it better. I like that.
and for some reason, a lot of companies, especially even the CEOs, they forget the same true saying that they have: specialize.
Mm-hmm.
So your marketing function needs to be specialized too. So if your marketing function is doing well in one channel specialty, you can't expect them to do well if they've got 3, 4 other channels you've just forced down their throat.
Right.
It's not going to do well.
And marketing, I always say this is marketing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not going to happen overnight. Like some people expect it to just magically appear and be the best it's going to be overnight. And it just doesn't work that way. It takes time.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the harder part for people to understand is like marketing is this so my whole philosophy is called the 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
And the 0 to 100 philosophy is basically every single touch point is has a material level of influence, right? So a sales call always has like a relatively high level of influence. That's why sales is relatively like a good playbook,
If you
right?
can get through to the right person.
Yes,
That's always,
of course,
yeah.
of course. So sales in general always does that,
Yeah.
and in marketing, we have a much more complicated job because our job is to actually find like 5 different touch points that actually push people to the journey of 100, where
Mm-hmm.
100 is where they make a decision. And so we don't get the pleasure of having a framework that always more or less has like a high probability sense of success. You could sell a SaaS platform for $9 a month and have a sales team, and that would work. That salesperson would have to be one hell of a fast cold caller to make those metrics work, but it would work,
Yeah.
right? But usually in product-led companies where you're looking at SaaS products that are selling for less than $100 a month, you're generating marketing materials that are going to slowly inch people through their own journey to make that purchase,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the most scalable way to do that. Because again, unless you have a cold caller who's really good
Mm-hmm.
and really fast, you're not going to make those economics really work out. And we don't have, like, as marketing people, we don't have that pleasure, right? We don't have that single playbook, and every year that playbook changes. I think it gets harder.
Yeah. I think even more than every year. I think it changes quarterly, depending on what's going on in the world and what kind of events are impacting and influencing all of the things that are going on. Like a political year, for example, is different than the non-political years. I feel like there's so many outside factors that you can't control, but yet you still need to be prepared for them and still think about it in your plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of consumer psychology things. So I've so you might have seen my videos, but I do a bunch of videos on consumer psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest problem also with marketing is I think every company has spotlight syndrome. And the spotlight syndrome is the fact that they think every product that comes out of marketing needs to be perfect. And I always really stress the companies. I was like, well, you don't have Super Bowl budget. So the reality is don't worry about it, because not a lot of people are going to see it anyways.
Hmm.
And I always stress to a lot of companies, so not only is it complex, but they're perfectionists.
Right.
And so this, marketing really gets all the short straws possible. So not only do we get every single person in the company wanting to have an opinion, not only do we have every single person thinking they have the solution,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have every single person wanting it to be perfect.
Mm.
And that just makes marketing really slow. And I think people don't see that too.
Yeah.
They forget how all those opinions lead to just a very slow function. Now imagine if you had every single person in the company make ERP decisions, or every single person make product sourcing decisions, or every single person make a sales call decision on whether or not you should call them, because it might be too sensitive to call them, because there's a reputational risk of calling that person.
Not everybody has the capability of doing that. That's not their lane. They're not good at it. One time we had this speaker come to my staff, and it was a sales consultant, and my graphic designer, very kind of more introverted, right? Not a salesperson whatsoever. But the exercise was each of us had to do a cold call. Everyone on the team, the entire team had to do a cold call, whether it was their job or not. And a couple things happened. The next day, she had been working with me for 16 years. She said, if you ever make me do that again, I will quit tomorrow. Like, I'm done. Don't ever make me do that again. And secondly, though, this is the beauty of it. I now understand and appreciate what salespeople do in order for us to get to do our job. And I'm like, it worked. But why would people who are not good at that area or that particular area be doing, our job, right?
I think it's the bane of our existence. I say this. So it's like it's our job as marketers to actually make things look and feel simple.
Mm,
And I think that bleeds into our profession,
yeah, totally.
right? Because like that is our job, right? It's like, oh yeah, you want it this pretty, we can make it pretty. Oh, you want this to sound, we can make it sound pretty.
Mhm.
And so I feel like everyone just thinks, okay, well, it's so easy. Well, it's our job to make it look easy. Like it's literally our job.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of like why, unfortunately, just everyone like no, again, just like your cold calling, not a lot of people go to a cold caller and just be like, your job is easy.
Yeah.
Some people do if they're mean, but realistically, a lot of people just don't. But for some reason, marketing it's always the case,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate. But I want every listener to know is just like one, it's not easy,
Right.
and two, going back to my point on limited resources
Mhm.
and perfectionism. Don't be perfect.
Mhm.
That's like the number one thing I also stress to clients. Don't be perfect.
Yeah.
Be aggressive. You don't have enough money for people to care.
Right. It'll get there eventually, but yeah, don't worry about that. So, Nathan, what are some of the tactics or tools that you use with helping sort of measure and keep track of all those KPIs, or what are some resources that you tap into that others on listening might need to know about?
So I think most people are like aware of like Data Studio and Google Analytics and Search Console. So, stating those things are probably kind of useless. They're kind of like you should know or have some, and HubSpot has dashboards and Salesforce has dashboards. They all have dashboards. So you can measure through those, and you don't know there, you should probably look into it. So rather than talk about dashboards, I'll probably just talk about a metric that I think is really interesting that I think a
Yeah.
lot of people forget to look at.
Yeah.
Inside of Google Search Console, you can actually do what I call the poor man's brand lift case study. And the reason I say that poor man's is because if you ever go to an agency to actually do a brand lift study, you'll realize you don't have money to do it. So it's really expensive. Probably prefer to spend that money actually on marketing. But what you can do is you can use Google Search Console to kind of give you an indication of how good your brand lift has actually occurred. And you do that by going in and using the query report. And what you can do is you can use the regex function, which is something short for regular expression. And you can create a regex function to capture all of your brand mentions in your queries. And then you can actually map that when you do a campaign to actually see if there's been a lift in the amount of searches you have in organic. And so if I was going to give one, really sexy, cheap, amazing tidbit to every single person on this, that's my number one cheap trick,
Yeah.
because it's there, it's free.
Yeah.
And if you do an amazing campaign and you don't want to do a brand lift study, this is the closest thing you're going to get to brand lift, because naturally, if you have done a good job in spreading the brand,
Mhm.
you will naturally see a very reasonably increase or material increase in the impressions that your brand is showing up inside of Google. Because generally speaking, I think is it 75%, 78% of people start their search on the web.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably my biggest trick that I'd probably share.
On those lines of resources to share, what kinds of maybe industry magazines or podcasts or blogs or anything like that do you follow or read religiously?
So I don't actually read much. The actual thing that I do read mostly is actually like consumer research. So like
Yeah.
Oxford Journal of Research, I'll read and I'll summarize almost their monthly journals on anything that I think is impactful to B2B marketing.
Nice.
So that's where I spend a lot of my time. I actually don't spend my time on podcasts or things. There's books that I'll read. But generally speaking, I don't listen to any podcasts. I spend a lot of my time on, I guess, primary research.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I will invest most of my time.
Very cool. And as far as the types of clients that you're looking for, who is it that you want to serve most for your own, for lack of a better term, agency?
Yeah, so we fundamentally focus on B2B businesses anywhere between the 25 to 50 employee headcount. You call it, that's anywhere between 3 to maybe $10 million in ARR. That's our sweet spot. It's kind of where we find ourselves landing in. But frankly speaking, we do all kinds of clients. Like we have different types of services that are built for different sizes of clients. But our main retainer service is really built for those companies where they're in that awkward in between where on marketing, we need marketing to be not a nascent function, but we can't really afford those three people, but we need the expertise and we need to scale because likely sales is reaching a point where they're unsure at the scalability of that. So they're looking at marketing as the next channel for incrementality of revenue. So that's usually the size. So B2B SaaS, not healthcare. We do some healthcare, but very little.
Hmm.
But majority of our stuff is in the SaaS space.
Gotcha. Yeah. We've been doing a lot more healthcare since the pandemic. We used to do a lot of tourism and hospitality and restaurants, and the big pandemic P word pivot kind of landed us in a different direction. So completely understand how different areas kind of change and evolve over time. So Nathan, what is it that you want people to know most about you, your agency? Go ahead and share how they can reach you and if they're interested in working with you.
Yeah, awesome. If you want to learn more about me, you can probably go find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at fya.marketingbytes, and you can listen to me jibber jabber about consumer psychology and how you can use it. Otherwise, if you are interested in our business services, you can take a look at our website, which is www.findyouraudience.online. We are in the middle of a rebranding, so I'm super excited about that this year. Our services will be changing. Not and a little bit more description. So funny enough, it's this is the first year we're actually publicly going to be selling SEO services. So it's a area of marketing which I almost never wanted to put on my website, but we do a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that the only reason is because I hated and Ray, you can totally probably attest to this. It's a very hard service to have client expectation management done well.
Right.
So this is the first year because we just have so much case studies. We've really streamlined our process.
Good.
We feel very comfortable to deliver results.
Right.
And we're actually going to be delivering it in such a way where we're actually going to be giving a 6-month guarantee.
Nice.
So it's the first time we're ever doing that.
Yeah.
I feel confident in doing that.
That's
So that's a part of the new product approach that we're going to be launching this year.
right. And that's pretty tricky to be able to guarantee that you're going to do what it is that you're going to do. You're really needing to manage those client expectations up front first so that you can, deliver on that.
This has been tried and tested and we feel very comfortable. But again, if you dare ask me for this service, you better know that you better not golden handcuff me because that's when the guarantee's off.
That is right. No, you will not have a good client worthiness index if you try to, just make Nathan an order taker. It won't happen.
Yeah. No, that's just a recipe for failure.
That's right. Well, I'm so happy for you. That's going to be really another fun adventure to get more into and be able to promote it and put it out there and actually claim it and own it, right? Yeah, and I can relate because there are so many different people who claim that they can do SEO and you just never really know what their capabilities truly are. But backing it up with your case studies and your guarantee, I think that's going to be a good win for you for sure, Nathan. That's really exciting.
Thanks, Ray.
So any last parting thoughts? If you had one last thing to say and it was the last thing that people are going to hear from this podcast from you, what is it?
If there was one last thing that's lasting advice that I feel like I come across all the time is the middle is where you go to die. Have you ever heard of that saying?
Oh, well, maybe in the middle of the funnel, you mean,
No,
or what?
so it's actually the middle positioning. So almost all the time you always run into these companies. It's like, well, I'm high end, but I want to give it at middle price. And I want a high level of service, but I want to give it at mid price. And I want to be the in between. I want to be the affordable option. I want to be the person right then and there. And the one thing that I'm going to say is it's a little bit like fusion restaurants. So Chinese Italian restaurants, you know what ends up happening is you get Chinese people who are upset, and then you get Italian people who are upset, and no one wins. And so, wow. and so I always stress to a lot of companies, in every part of the business, including your marketing,
Mhm.
just looking at being the best and being an extreme in everything you do. So if you're going to be the highest price, then be the highest price. If you want to be the lowest price, then be Ryanair and be the lowest price. Charge for toilet entries.
Yeah.
And if you want to have poor marketing, then try to find a middle manager to do 13 things. But if you want to have the best demand generator, find an affiliate media buyer who literally spends their entire days buying media.
Hmm.
Really don't go in the middle in anything you, and especially in your positioning, because when you position in the middle, it actually is incredibly confusing. And I
Yeah.
don't think people really understand how much of a friction point that is to be in
Hmm.
the middle when it comes to the consumer. Because when you say, hey, I'm good at both, but by the way, I do it cheaper, the first question is they always go, well, how? And I don't believe
Yeah.
you.
And then
So
they don't, and you devalue yourself. You devalue what you have to offer. Yep.
absolutely. So I know it's a little bit of a morbid saying, but the middle is where you go to die as a business, not as a person, as a
Right.
business.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And I
understand.
would really recommend when it comes to your creatives too, go big or go
Hmm.
home. If you want to be conservative
Right.
with your creatives, don't bother. No one's going to remember you.
Right.
You're spending $10 a day versus the guy who's spending 300 or 400 or 500 or 1,000. Your
Right.
creatives gotta win. So that's the biggest thing, and something that I've certainly been putting more into practice and really pushing my clients on.
Good. I love that. The middle is where you go to die. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for sharing all your wisdom for us and really appreciate you on the show today.
Okay, thank you, Ray.
You bet. And for those of you who are listening now, the best thing that you can do for both of us is share this with others that you know that need to hear what Nathan had to say. And then, of course, give us a review. And I'll do some shout outs on the new round of reviews. I'll do a little shout out to you. So if you give us a review, you could get on the show too. All right. Until next time, everybody, enjoy your marketing journey.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Expedition podcast. Want to continue the journey? Don't miss out on new episodes. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Wouldn't it be great if there was one place you can go to get all the latest information and tips about marketing and advertising? The Marketing Expedition community is that place. People like you gather in an online community to build relationships with others and find the latest marketing trends, tactics, tools, and technology. We help you build your brand and your bottom line. Start your adventure today. Visit themarketingexpedition.com to find out more.